Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here on the map of Winterpire with a bit of a 2v2 game this time around. So we are doing the good old grudge match of Dark Elves against High Elves, and so my teammate and I deployed all the way down here, expecting our opponent to simply deploy across from us, but our High Elf opponents decided to be a little sneaky and deploy here in the corner. There does appear to be quite a little bit of confusion, as units are just layered over top of each other. Most likely they set up formations and they were getting a little confused, but that's okay. As things do take a little bit to kick off. So out of the bat, my teammate and I did decide to do somewhat differing builds. Obviously, this isn't intended to be anything competitive or crazy serious, so everybody here was having a little bit of fun. For my lord, I decided to run Marathi on foot. She does have a great bonus against large. She has armor piercing, of course. She does have a lot of debuffs, which is really what I wanted to bring her for. I also didn't want to bring a flying lord because if you get caught by the Tempest from the Lore of High Magic, that's really bad. So I decided to bring Marathi on foot. She does have Enchanting Beauty as well as Heartrender Darksword, which is a combined minus 18 melee attack debuff if she's in melee. Alongside that, I did bring a Death Hag. And the Death Hag, of course, does have the Chill Blade, which is a further minus 5 melee attack. So potentially, if you get these two into fight, you can debuff your opponent's melee attack by 23, which is really huge. Marathi I did also bring Marathi with Pit of Shades, with Soul Blight, with Power of Darkness to increase my power reserves, Deadly Onslaught, of course, good old Soul Stealer, the self-healing, and then Wand of Caradon, which is a bombardment ability she gets. I do believe she did not used to have this, and I do believe this was added in one of the recent patches. But it's a really pretty cool ability and lots of fun to use. For my front line, I decided to run a mix of a bunch of Blackheart Corsairs, backed up by some Blackheart of Nagarond. Blackheart Corsairs are just a decent unit against High Elves, nothing too spectacular, but they can dice through their cheap infantry. And then Blackheart of Nagarond are there to give me that psychological immunity, kind of a linchpin that can hold back enemy monsters. And that Witch Elves to tie down enemy units, of course, with that Madness of Cain, and 2 units of Shades with Great Swords for fun, as well as to just shoot down enemy flyers if needed. And otherwise, of course, they can apply pressure to other sorts of units, things like Swordmaster of Hoth and all that sort of stuff. The Death Hag, I'm definitely hoping to make use of her to kind of buff my Blackheart Corsairs, make them a little more competitive in close quarters with the use of Fear of Cain. For my ally, he did decide to bring quite a different build, definitely trying out a whole bunch of different things. For his front line, he did bring a bunch of Bleak Swords, which were originally in front of the Corsairs. Bleak Swords, of course, do have Silver Shields, so they can soak up missile fire. Backed up by the Blackheart Corsairs, so really kind of oriented at fighting the enemy squishy units and just chewing through them. Up in the air, he does have a Dreadlord with Sword and Shield. Definitely a little bit of a risky move, but still fun. Still a really powerful hero with that crazy Hydra Blade that gives him a really large weapon strength boost. Of course, did bring a Deadly Onslaught and Foe Seeker just for that mobility. And I do believe he has, or she has, I guess, the Dreadlord, because this is the female Dreadlord has one with the Sword and Shield. Does have Strength through Spite, which is a cool plus 5 melee attack buff. When for her and nearby allies. Alongside that, my opponent also did bring Cold One Chariot. This is definitely a risky unit. I'm personally not a fan, but still a really cool unit to see being used. Does have armor piercing, a bonus against infantry, crazy armor at 110, and it actually does have some armor piercing projectiles here, so pretty cool. Causes fear, all that sort of stuff, but it can rampage, so definitely a little risky there. A Hydra down here on the ground. Of course, breath attacks, does have some pretty cool, pretty high weapon strength, some decent melee attack. Main problem is that it has low armor and fairly weak melee defense, but nonetheless a pretty cool unit. It does have those crazy bursts of regen. Finally, out here on the flank, my ally did bring a combo of 2 Cold One Dread Knights. So once again, a unit you don't see very often, but nonetheless a cool unit to see being used. Over here, our opponents did decide to bring a very massive army, or it seems that way at any rate for High Elves. I'm usually used to seeing more chaff heavy, but as you can see, the numbers actually are very similar. But this is definitely probably because our opponents went a lot cheaper on the ground level, and really invested up in the sky. So as you can see, two princesses actually, one mounted on a star dragon, or I do never mind. I do believe the sun dragon. So stripped down of anything, just has the breath attack you get from the dragon, but still cool, gives you a lot of mobility. And of course, we didn't bring any flyers ourselves. Also, there's a moon dragon down here. And the Moon Dragon is the interim quality dragon. It's better than the Sun Dragon by a little bit, a little worse than the and you can see the bolt throwers already going off and sniping away. But it's a little better than the Sun Dragon, a little worse than the Star Dragon, or actually quite a bit worse, I think. Over here, my other opponent does have a princess and does have a Star Dragon over here. So definitely a very, very powerful flying contingent that could cause fear, terror, all that sort of stuff. Could be a big problem. Now, I'm not entirely sure whose units are whose, because this is all high elf on high elf, and this was very clumped up. But our opponents did bring a bunch of silver helms. They did bring some dragon princes, so definitely a strong cavalry contingent. Some phoenix guard in the back, some sword masters of Hoeth, a mix of spearmen, archers, and Lothern Sea Guard making up the shooting contingent. There are also some white lines of Krace mixed in here. Right now it's really a mishmash as our opponents try to redraw their line, just like we did. And there's also Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower back here, so already teeing off on the chariots. You can see already picking off quite a bit of HP. And of course, once the total on chariots drop below 50%, they start rampaging, and that is a huge, huge problem. But yeah, Dragon Prince is really potent. There's Phoenix Guard, of course, and I do believe there's 2 units of them, so that's another dangerous unit. And finally, our opponents do have a Mage of Light with simply the Net of a Mintock. And I actually didn't bring the lore books, or the books that improve your regen and of Winds of Magic. So definitely a little interesting, and we'll see how things go. Definitely, I apologize for the lengthy intro. I'm not used to doing 2-on-2 matchups, so that was pretty long and talkative. Over here, you can see I was trying to posture my greatswords to get into position and kind of snipe away at these dragons. And I wasn't really quite able to get into position. I didn't want to get too close and start taking fire or get revealed too early. Obviously, you don't want to be firing from too far away, because if you're firing from, say, like, over here, even if you do technically have the range for it, you'll miss most of your shots, and you'll give yourself away. And right now, I'm just trying to keep these guys in reserve as a sort of trump card. Over here, though, my ally does get a jump on this princess and does land a pretty meaty hit over there. You can see in the meantime, fire breaths and bolt throwers are getting thrown in. Unfortunately for my opponent, that Star Dragon breath gets largely squandered because the Blackheart Corsairs had just gotten knocked back by the bolt throwers. Definitely a big save there for me. Unfortunately for me though, the Death Hag does get pinned down and is now being peppered by all of these archers. Granted, some of them are sitting on top of each other. They blobbed up. This was a huge problem for our opponents. They started out in that corner, which might not have been the worst of ideas, but now they're struggling to get into good position. You can see breath attacks going down, just burning down the poor Death Hag over here. She's getting roasted, and it's really rough. And she, despite having 80 armor, 12% physical resist, and all that sort of stuff, she's going to rout fairly shortly. You can see there, I tried to land a bombardment on the Moon Dragon, but it doesn't work out. Star Dragon does get cheeky and land on the Blackheart Corsairs, and I'm not really able to do anything about it, so he will be able to simply escape. In spite of the fact that the Shades were trying to pepper him down a little bit, apply some pressure there. In the meantime, our opponents do dive down with the Princess as well as the Moon Dragon fighting the Hydra, so that's going to be a pretty cool fight. I do land a lovely pit of Shades over here on this blob of archery that is just trying to be a nuisance to our army. And the frontline clash has definitely begun. It's definitely not particularly well organized. You can see the Dread Knights kind of collapsing here on the flank. These Dread Knights over here just sitting around doing nothing for now. My frontline, Rathi's in there. The Blackheart Corsairs are in there, slicing and dicing through these spears. And further, Blackheart Corsairs are trying to get onto this enemy backline, even as the Blackheart of Nagron is kind of continuing its push forward. Over here, Silver Helms have plowed through and are kind of crushing these poor Blackheart Corsairs. As my opponents, my allies' Blackheart Corsairs are still sitting around here. I do try to get the Witch Elves into the fray, trying to just tie down these Dragon Princes, and you can see they're picking off a lot of Shades with Greatswords. Shades are very, very squishy with their low armor. They're very, very susceptible to these sorts of hit-and-run attacks. The Dragon Princes with their crazy damage output are really, really dangerous. Over here, you can see a Soul Stealer is going down, healing Marathi up like crazy. You can see her HP was down to like 80%. It's back up to full. The front line is still going strong. The Star Dragon has landed into the middle of the fray, but now that we're able to zone away the Dragon Princess a little bit, we'll be able to start turning our attention around. I do focus on my opponent's Princess over here, and she is going to start taking some nasty fire from the Shades with Greatswords, who are just having none of this, and they're just going to dish out a lot of hurt. You can see the first volleys. They're trying to arc over the Hydra, which is pretty cool. It's actually pretty cool to just watch and see as the dragon goes down, getting peppered to death by shade fire. Down to 6 HP, and there the Hydra gets her. She gets thrown off her high horse, or high dragon, I suppose. In the meantime, the frontline fight is definitely very, very iffy. You can see the Blackguard is struggling here. They're getting peppered down by everything. There's white lines of Krace in there who will still do good amounts of damage to them. The Witch Elves have dove into the fray, trying to tear through the Swordmasters of Hoeth and everything here. They've also rampaged the Star Dragon, which was their main target, and that was definitely my goal here, just trying to tie it down and prevent it from escaping. And in the meantime, this Moon Dragon is wailing on the War Hydra, doing a lot of damage to it. It almost brings it down to 31 HP, only its region keeping it alive. And unfortunately, I do believe I friendly fired it to death there. And the Cold One Chariot also does begin to riot or rampage. But tough luck for the Moon Dragon. It does get peppered down over here by focus fire from the good old Shades. Unfortunately, the Shades are not having a good day, and the Silver Helms do plow into them with a powerful charge bonus, just setting them flying. In the meantime, most of my infantry have been kind of committed into the fray. You can see things are all over the place. I have actually dropped Fear of Cain on the Witch Elves, making them absolute monsters in melee. You can see they're melting through everything. Our Murderous Prowess has gone down, which is giving us a huge boost here, and we are just able to start chewing through the enemy. Even the Star Dragon with decent armor and decent melee stats is being torn apart. And of course, it is being hit by several debuffs from both the Witch Elves as well as Marathis and being nearby and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty crazy. Over here, the Death Hag is getting surrounded and kind of beaten down. You can see the Shades trying to rally. You can see the Blackheart Corsairs here on 10 models and 175 HP. Blackheart Daggeron, though, still very healthy. And you can see my allies, Cold Dread Knights, are kind of rampaging off. And the Dragon Princes are posturing, thinking about the charge, and just think better of it eventually, which is probably the good idea. Here in the back line, though, my ally has got his Blackheart Corsairs into the rear and is trying to kind of deal with these white lions, and our opponents have kind of reformed a shooting line, which is definitely a bit of a problem for us. Though fortunately, we have kind of managed to break through, and you can see the Blackheart Corsairs streaming through. You can see the Dreadlord is over here, and the Star Dragon has been routed off, but is still alive at 951 HP. Over here, the Princess, I almost called her a lady because I'm so used to playing with Wood Elves, is kiting away, and as we pepper down our opponent's Swordmasters of Hoeth with a whole bunch of crossfire from Ye-Gold Shades with Greatswords. Fortunately, this is going to cost us our Death Hag's life because she's going to plow in there. She's a very, very big target, and the Shades are going to friendly fire down death as in the process of killing the Swordmasters, who do actually get terror routed by the Death Hag. So definitely a bit of a mistake on my part, but not the end of the world. I'm not too worried about it. Another Soul Stealer does go down, draining these archers of their HP and making them a little more susceptible, even as Marathi is closing the gap with the help of these Witch Elves as well as the Blackheart Corsairs. In the back line, the White Lions are, of course, winning out against Blackheart Corsairs. It's not really a fair fight for the Blackheart Corsairs, who aren't really meant for that sort of matchup. I was actually wrong. Death Hag doesn't die. She simply shatters from friendly fire. Basically the same thing. Over here, the dragons are dueling. They're duking it out. You can see my ally has popped all of his abilities on the Dreadlord, bringing his weapon strength up to a monstrous 832 damage, which is really, really crazy in the moment. And this Star Dragon is in for a really rough time. He gets brought down, and now my ally is going to be able to start chasing after this princess. In the meantime, the Shades are starting to run a little low on ammo, though of course they are rather low on models as well, so and definitely, well, we can see that based on their chevrons that these guys have been doing a lot of work this game. Over here, unfortunately, our Blackheart Corsairs do get pincered by the Silver Helms as well as the Archers, and this has definitely been a bit of a problem this game, that our opponents simply have the dominance in the cavalry field. Obviously, Cold Dread Knights are okay, but once they started rampaging, they're much, much less effective than they would be otherwise. That said, the bar is definitely starting to shift in our favor, but it's definitely not game over. In spite of the fact that the Witch Elves and the Marathi and all them are kind of swamping all over these archers and trashing them, there's still some decent amounts of enemy troops left. There's White Lions over here. There's our opponents do have, I do believe, still a Dragon Princess somewhere over here. There's Dragon Princess routing off Blackheart Corsairs and Plegue Swords and chasing off the field. There's more Phoenix Guard over here. They still do have the Princess over here on the Eagle, who's capable of sniping away continuously at the Dreadlord, who she outranges, of course. Yeah, and there's still a few Silver Helms. There's still a cavalry presence for our opponents. So by and large, we're definitely not in the best of situations ourselves. The main thing we do have going for us at this point, me and my ally, is that I still have a fairly high HP Blackheart Vanagrond, as well as the Dreadlord on the Dragon, and finally Marathi, who is running him around here somewhere. Everything else is really looking rather weak right at this point. My other Blackheart unit, I do believe, got slaughtered to man, or close to being slaughtered to man. I do try to get my Shades here into position just to pepper down the Princess, and they get a few shots in, doing some okay damage, but they do take a nasty hit there from her volley of high arrows. And in the meantime, finally my opponent does decide to charge out the Princess. I made a big mistake of moving my black card away. I should have kept them on top of the Shades at this stage, knowing that they're kind of a trump card for me, and they're definitely paying for it here as the Shades get just ramshackled by this horde of cavalry. In the meantime, though, in the back line, these archers are being pursued. You can see Marathi and her gang of Blackheart Corsairs and the Witch Elves is kind of collapsing on Dragon Princes and on the White Lions, just annihilating them. Marathi is, of course, still a very, very potent melee combatant. She's doing rather well here. Dragon Princes, though, do get a nice charge off and get out without the Witch Elves tagging him, which, if had that happened, would have been very bad for him. Nonetheless, the White Lions are getting slaughtered, and the Dragon Princes, in spite of being very tanky, are not going to be able to fight, say, Marathi in extended combat. And they are, of course, being debuffed, though their massive charge bonus is more than compensating for it. In the meantime, my Blackheart is trying to kind of intercept these guys, trying to pen them in and get rid of the cavalry. Though, of course, there's a little bit of a problem here, as our Blackheart Corsairs are getting peppered down, even as they try to pursue these archers. You can see, though, the Dragon does land really nicely here, and does manage to get a pick off a Dragon Prince there, even as our Shades are coming back online, and they should be able to start peppering away in a mere moment. And I'm trying to shoot my Blackguard out over here to try to kind of intercept. And Marathi has beaten off these white lions, and things, obviously, the bar you can see is very, very much in our favor, but nonetheless, there's still some potential for an enemy comeback, because they are, of course, isolating our units. They still have a decent amount of shooting left, and isolated our units are nowhere near as good. Unfortunately, over here you can see these shades with the great swords are broken. I do believe they won't be coming back. And this second unit of shades, right as they run out of ammo, are going to just plow into these silver helms, and they're going to get torn apart. They really don't stand much of a chance. They can get run over, and shortly thereafter they will get slaughtered. Though they do buy us some time, enough time for the dragon, or for the Dreadlord to come in and start biting them, and then the good old Blackguard is going to come in and finish them off. Things are definitely starting to look up. At this stage, everything's kind of collapsing for our opponents, and you can see finally the terror out or the shatter from losses does kick in and give us the victory in what was a very tight, very long game, and definitely a lot of fun. So, going through everybody's stats in the end game. Obviously, this wasn't too serious of a game. This was more of a for fun, just fun little matchup, just to see what would happen, trying out different little things. I think I was probably the most try-hard person in this game, unfortunately, with my build of Black Ark Corsairs, but nonetheless, it was a lot of fun. Definitely, the Death Hack did very, very little. She got kind of destroyed by arrow fire early on. Marathi was an absolute champ. Tore through my opponent's infantry line and did an amazing job with her spells and all that sort of stuff. Got a great Pit of Shades. Blackguard held out. Actually, both the Blackguard units were kind of MVPs, because despite not getting any kills and dying, these Blackguard actually held up an entire flank, essentially, for a really long time. The Shades actually did really well. They gained several chevrons. You can see the same with the Witch Elves, who tore down the dragon. They're obviously not optimized for killing dragons, but they did. So these units, some of these units performed really well, in spite of what their kill counts might suggest. And of course, all the armies in this game were fairly elite, so every kill mattered. It does look like our opponents, now that it's looking at it now, it does look like our opponents definitely went for a very defensive or melee-oriented build, while the other went for a very shooty-oriented build, with the hope that they would cooperate. For my ally, obviously his Dreadlord once again did really well, so both of our lords did really well, kind of carrying the game there. And the Cold One Dread Knights did surprisingly well, though I'm not entirely sure what these skills were on, but they did pretty good there. Some pretty good work, and it does look like someone gained some chevrons. The Hydra also actually dueled several of the monsters. It dueled the Star Dragon. It dueled, I do believe it dueled the Star Dragon, and I do believe it dueled some of the other maybe it dueled some of the other dragons, but nonetheless, it did a pretty good job on the ground. I do believe it actually gained several chevrons. I think it started out on one. That was pretty crazy. Yeah, Bleak Swords had a rough time because there wasn't much in the enemy front line that they could deal with, and Bleak Swords are fairly slow, so they can't really catch archers the way that Corsairs can, to pad their kill stats. For our opponents, of course, White Lions of Crace had a very good matchup in this situation, where we had very little melee armor piercing. Basically, the only units we had that could really deal with White Lions, or for that matter, their other armored units like the Swordmasters or the Phoenix Guard, the only units we really had that could deal with them fairly reliably were the Blackguard, Shades, and of course Dread Knights, and kind of Cold One Shades and War Hydras. But the vast majority of the front line was not armor piercing. The archers had a bit of a rough time. I think there was a decent amount of armor on their front line, so most of the units, they obviously did rack up some kills, but they just didn't have the ideal targets. It wasn't like a horde of lightly armored troops. The Silver Helms did some absolute champion work, as did the Dragon Princes, just running roughshod over a lot of our isolated infantry and doing a really good job of just keeping us off the field. I think the Eagle Hawk Bolt Thrower is probably the only really arguably bad pick in this situation, because it really kind of just got swarmed all over and knocked out rather quick. Otherwise, this is a lot of fun, pretty cool build. And the dragons obviously got caught on the ground fighting, trying to isolate and kill the Hydra, and then got picked apart. It was also interesting actually to see a high elf. I'm not entirely sure which of my opponent. I do believe it was this one, because the princess does a lot of HP. The use of the princess on the eagle is actually pretty cool. That's something you see a lot when you play as Wood Elves, but it was nonetheless pretty cool to see it with high elves as well. So yeah, good game to our opponents, Epsilon and Winkle. Good game to my teammate Slappy, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's obviously meant to be a little silly, but a bit of fun. If you did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below for additional content. As usual, guys, if you have any comments, criticisms, and anything like that, be sure to post them down in the comments as well, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.